In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. And if you watched yesterday's video, you knew that the models were kind of tilting towards a more wintry direction, both in terms of temperature and snowfall here in the central and eastern United States, and really even the West, because they're expecting a whole lot of snowfall as well. But today, we have taken a huge leap, not even just step, I would say leap further into that wintry look. Both major models now showing very severe cold as we reach towards the midway point of the month, and numerous major snowstorms. So it is going to be an action-packed video, very reminiscent of what we saw the models outputting for January when we were looking in late December, early January timeframe towards the midway point of last month. Except it is a lot more snowy. It seems like precipitation is going to be much easier to find. So a little bit different, a little bit better for cold and snow lovers, but still very, very cold. So let's dive into it. I'm very excited to break this one down for you guys. And really, these outlooks are exactly the same for the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14. From yesterday, we see cold for the 7th through 11th out west, and for the north central states, warm in the east. So that is not changing. I don't want to hear people say, oh, it's 70 outside. It's going to be warm here for a little bit before that cold pattern sets in. So we still do expect this early portion of February to be very, very warm, especially at times. It could be, 15, 20 degrees above normal for many folks. That is going to change in a big way later on. Precipitation already taking form kind of to what we expect. We see lots of large storms moving up from the Gulf or south central states up into the east. We're also going to have numerous storms moving from the west up in through this area as well. So we are going to see above average precipitation for the majority of the nation. 8 to 14 day outlook. The only thing that's really pertinent here is we do see the cold air kind of spreading further eastward. So that transition is beginning to happen for the 9th through 15th time frame. I do suspect that these outlooks are going to look a lot colder here. Later today, we're going to get some. I just had to record this video a little bit early. So for tomorrow's video, I suspect the 8 to 14 day period will spread this cold further eastward. Mark my words, I might be wrong. Maybe they're not seeing what I'm seeing, but I do suspect that this 8 to 14 day outlook as of tomorrow is going to look very, very different from this. We still see a little bit of a southeast ridge on this particular time frame from this particular outlook, but I think this is going to be a lot less of a feature come tomorrow. Precipitation still very abundant, even more abundant for the entire United States by this point. So let's take a look at the past 2 days average temperature now, as we're looking at February 2nd. So this is the first and second combined. And really the only cold areas is going to be this northeastern quadrant here, the northwest as well here for a little bit, and then also some of the kind of like southern four corner states into a bit of California there. Most everywhere else is pretty well above normal. So it's been very pleasant. And again, this is going to continue at least for about a week moving forward. So this is not going to end suddenly. We're not kind of changing our opinion of the near term. It's mostly the medium to long range that we are really seeing signals of cold moving in. So let's take a look at the very exciting European model, because it is going to be very exciting. And already today, we have a storm system moving through the northwest, snowfall around for Washington and Oregon, the northern Rockies here. We also have a weaker system here for south central Canada that is kind of expanding some snow showers down into the Great Lakes. This is a minor storm in nature, so just expect to see flakes flying. Little to no accumulation with that one, but out west, accumulation is going to come very easily. By tomorrow on Monday, February 3rd here, we end up with this north-based zonal flow, and what that means is there's no real troughs or ridges here. It's really just one big ridge down underneath, and a little bit of cold air up to the north, what we're seeing here by tomorrow on the 3rd. Snowfall around for the northwest still, also for the Great Lakes, becoming a little bit more abundant there. So some heavier, especially in Michigan, lower peninsula of Michigan there, seeing some heavier snowfall. As we move towards Tuesday afternoon, we see a lot of the action in the east has come to an end. We continue to see the west prevailing though. So again, they're not going to see a snowless February here. It's going to be much more snowy than the previous 2 winter months that they've seen out west. I think feet of snowfall is a certainty at this point for most mountain ranges out in that area. We do see these isolated thunderstorms starting up for Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi as well. Very, very clear that we're going to see some storminess prevailing in these warm sectors. Again, your jet stream is way up here, so we have lots of humidity and warmth to work with underneath. So this is why for days we've been saying that thunderstorms are going to become pretty common here throughout February for a lot of these southern areas. And by Wednesday the 5th, we see a lot of this expanding as all of that activity is moving northward. If we follow the precipitation, we can tell there's a flow of warmth and humidity moving from the Caribbean through the Gulf and straight up into this kind of south central region of the United States. And we are seeing a lot of thunderstorms throughout there. But not only that, some wintry weather now developing for portions of the Midwest. And we do have a low here between Wyoming and South Dakota there, but I suspect we'll see our own low kind of develop throughout this storm here in a minute. But because of this low out west, we do actually see snowfall really taking form still for the Pacific Northwest, Northern Rockies, and now kind of extending into some of the plains as well. Again, Wednesday the 5th there. Thursday, yeah, we do get our own low developing over Missouri here overnight, but for the high temperatures of Thursday here, we end up with a parent low behind everything, secondary low here, which is really the one that's acting as the parent low for this cold front, warm front setup that we have here. And really, this warm front is going to pull the warm and humid air up the East Coast and just out front of that cold front as well. And the cold front swinging down with the cold and dry temperatures is what's going to kind of spark up some thunderstorm chances here for the Ohio Valley in general. Heavy showers at the very least, but I think that there could be enough instability to see some thunderstorms pop up here for Thursday on February 6th. Wintry weather prevailing for eastern Canada and the Northeast here. You might be thinking, oh, this doesn't look very wintry. What were you talking about? Stay tuned. Stay tuned, please, because it's going to change in a big way. Friday the 7th here. Still not so wintry out in the east. We do see some snowfall now reaching way down into the Sierra Nevada mountains there. Still some of the Cascades and Rockies as well here. But that zonal flow is, for the most part, still taking place. But we can tell that that jet stream is consistently moving further southward. So we're seeing more Canadian Arctic air playing an influence here in the United States. And this warm air is kind of failing to beat it out. It's just kind of like having to, spread around, and it's not having very much success pushing back the cold. The cold is clearly winning by this point as we see it advancing onto the warmth. We still see isolated thunderstorms and showers down here in this warm sector, but as the cold air moves in, that should become less and less of a factor. By Saturday on the 8th here, we see a low developing for Kansas and Missouri, and this features some snowfall to the north in general. So for Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Iowa, Wisconsin and Illinois, including Chicago, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and portions of Pennsylvania seeing snowfall here. And then we end up basically seeing a warm front out here to the east. So we'll have to see how this advances. Typically, snowfall along a warm front isn't very sustainable. This doesn't lead to very much accumulation, especially if it's advancing northward. So we'll have to watch that closely. Also likely to develop a cold front underneath of this one that'll pull in even more cold air. So be watching for those things as we move forward. We're going to take this overnight into Sunday, and we do see that cold front develop. Along this warm front, we see these areas that we're seeing snowfall mixing with rain and even freezing rain and snowfall now for the Northeast. But who knows how advanced that warm front is going to become, because we could see it way up here, and some of these more central New England areas could see rainfall mix in later on. Dragging cold front here, and this again would be thunderstorms and showers being a possibility within that kind of Ohio Valley down through the south central states region. As we see this move through, we do see New England actually end up with all snowfall. We do see a secondary low trying to take off here after that kind of low and warm front has moved off. We see some broad low pressure kind of throughout this area here. And this is leading to some mid-Atlantic snowfall on this particular model run. And keep in mind, we're within 10 days here. This is only 8 days from now. Definitely would say that this will likely change quite a bit and might even change completely. But interesting to see these models now trending at some lower snowfall occurring much sooner. Again, your zonal flow even further south now. So more signs of that Arctic air just overall continuing to advance, and this warm air having really nowhere to go except back where it came from. It's literally retreating. It's losing. By that afternoon, we see that snowfall coming to an end. Maybe some thunderstorms still for the Gulf states and southeast, as there's still enough warm air there. But we see this cold air continue to advance, and we begin to see a pretty reminiscent storm that starts out near the western Gulf of Mexico. Snowfall for the southern plains and southern Midwest areas like Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. Is Missouri like the Midwest? I guess it is. And this is going to move into Illinois as well, southern Illinois. So let's see what happens. This is, again, Tuesday the 11th. By Wednesday the 12th, we end up with a low that has gone ahead and moved like this off of the Mid-Atlantic, and we get another Mid-Atlantic pretty major snow system here. Heavy snowfall throughout Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, D.C., the Delmarva, southern New Jersey, southern Pennsylvania. This is a pretty major snow system, and it's happening right around the 10-day mark. So this isn't egregiously into the long range. This is, in the medium range, and definitely something to track, and for sure a good sign. This is our second or third snow system we're already seeing, and this does move into southern New England. It gets a little bit of lift up there, up the east coast there, so a lot of northeastern Pennsylvania, southern New York, northern New Jersey, southern New England getting some snowfall there at the end. And then, again, the storminess is really a difference maker here compared to January. We see some low pressure here, bringing some showers and thunderstorms throughout the southeast. But we get this northern piece of energy here as well, where we get snowfall for the plains and Midwest again. All of this is going to try to come together after Thursday the 14th. And we end up with, on Friday, did I say Wednesday the 14th? Thursday the 13th into Friday the 14th here. And we end up with a pretty massive Midwest and Great Lakes snow system here. Very, very snowy throughout these areas. Mostly rainfall here along the east. Unless you're in New England, we can see some wintry weather prevailing. So we get a cutter here at this point. And then we end up with the deep cold air moving in. This is when we're getting really, really cold. 14th, 15th here. And look at this. We have lots of storminess here along this east coast, and we have a northern piece of energy here. This is not coming together here, but this is potential. When you see this type of energy, the cold moving in, if everything were to stall out and we see exactly this, you could very easily end up with a massive East Coast snow system with this type of look. So another kind of potential, and we actually do see that come together a little bit with some interior Mid-Atlantic and Northeast snowfall there. And then we end up with this very deep cold around the 16th, 17th, 18th. I mean, this is purely a ridge in the west, trough, major trough in the east pattern, and we would be back into the 15, 20, 25, 30 degrees below normal, at least for the Midwest, the northern plains, the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, southeast, Mid-Atlantic, northeast. This is very reminiscent of the temperatures that we saw in January. So if we see this verify, which we did kind of see this on the European model yesterday as well, the GFS model is more of the question mark, but this would be groundbreaking. This would be just a crazy flip in the forecast. GFS model. Let's work our way through it. Again, we're usually more brief with this, but we're going to track the storms. We do end up with this similar kind of snowfall for the 6th here for the Great Lakes and then into the Northeast. A little bit more abundant there in the Northeast on this model, I would say. Then we end up with another Northeast snow system around the 8th, 9th, 10th. Again, New England and New York is mostly what I'm referring to as New England. So 1, 2, and then we end up with a little bit of a Mid-Atlantic snow system here around the 10th. This might be the one that we see on the European model. We get like a glimmer of snowflakes. It's not even a snowstorm. But with this, I mean, we have the cold air up here, the storm right down here, and it is, 7 days out, something like that, 7, 8 days out. This could trend a little bit northward in this amount of time, more into the cold. So that is definitely potential. We see something come together, just like the European model, around Tuesday the 11th across the plains and Midwest areas, and we end up with a pretty massive Mid-Atlantic snow system on this model as well, just like the European model showed. Again, 11th, 12th, 13th there, pretty heavy snow system, and then we get this follow-up one, very similar to the European model, Midwest Great Lakes snow system. And what I love about this is we've gotten 2 systems in the Northeast, 1 system in the Mid-Atlantic with the potential for a second one. And now we're getting a massive Ohio Valley, parts of the Ohio Valley, Midwest, and Great Lakes snow system. So it's like everybody gets a little bit. These 2 model runs aren't really excluding anybody as far as the snowfall, unless you're really far to the south. We end up with a deep area of cold after that for the 15th. Here's the 16th, as we see a clipper, actually a major clipper, kind of wrap around this cold air and end up over Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia. We get another pretty massive snow system there as that deep cold is moving in. The one thing I would say is it's not quite as deep as the European model, but it is clear that we have a really, really deep jet stream here. Again, European model probably takes it well into the Gulf states, so a little less deep here, but we see a system forming here with snowfall as far south as northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. Definitely, you can kind of picture the cold that it would take to support this. So what this model is showing is very extreme. We see snowfall in here, and likely would get another mid-Atlantic snow system from this moving across. So very active, very cold on both of these models. We're going to dive into the total precipitation, total snowfall, and temperatures here. So let's just move through. Precipitation, obviously abundant. Despite the very cold pattern, we don't end up with a cold and dry pattern like we saw in January. We actually end up with a cold and active pattern, which is a really intense combo for potential snowfall. So potential is sky high here. And then the Northwest and Rockies, as well as portions of the Sierra Nevada, are obviously going to cash in on feet of snowfall, as I mentioned. When we look at the anomalies, I mean, we're looking at above average throughout, actually, probably the majority of the country, narrowly majority. Well, maybe like 60-70% of the nation, actually. We see a lot of the Northwest here, highly above average, and then a lot of the East in Ohio Valley and Great Lakes here. So, and then we get some of the plains near average to above average. So this is a pretty stormy look. Total snowfall on the European model is just a ton for everybody. I mean, this is more than half the nation seeing snowfall. Obviously, the west, mountainous west here, seeing feet, like I mentioned. The plains, central and northern plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, parts of the Ohio Valley, mostly seeing 1 to 2 feet in these pink areas. The purples and blues, we're looking at much more like plowable snowfall, but not feet. We're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches of snowfall in a lot of those areas. A lot of your Ohio Valley here, mostly looking at 4, 5, 6 inches. Then the Mid-Atlantic, as well as the Northeast here, we're likely looking at 1 foot to 2 feet in there, 1 to 3 feet in the Northeast. So very, very good look on the European model. And then the GFS model, we're going to come in and actually bring it in more intensely. We see the mountainous west, feet of snowfall. That's just a fact at this point, not even an opinion. Plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, it's spotty. We can see there's some spots in here where we're only ending up with inches, but in these areas where we're very, very pink and even like the pastels and blues and stuff, that is where we're seeing 1, 2, 3 feet perhaps. So take it with a grain of salt for these southern areas, but that is multiple feet in there that this model is calling for. Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Northeast, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet perhaps for northern New England and areas of Canada. And then this mid-Atlantic corridor, we're looking at in the areas that are pink to even pastels. Again, 1, 2, 3 feet of snowfall here. So don't take this as gospel. Most of this is happening after the 7-day mark, but it really, really shows what this upcoming pattern has the potential to be, which is numerous major snowfall events leading to numerous feet of snowfall for all of your different areas like the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, even the plains, the Central Plains, Northern Plains, and then all the Western mountain ranges. I mean, who doesn't cash in here unless you're deeply to the south where they've already seen snowfall this season? I mean, this is a fantastic look if you're hoping for more cold and snow. Temperatures, let's talk about the cold. So we're warm here, like we mentioned, for days. We see the cold move in. So it's going to be flip-flopping still like we've been talking about. Tuesday's warm, Wednesday's cold for others. Thursday, we see another huge warm-up in that last into parts of Friday. We get a bit of a cool down on Saturday with another pretty big warm-up here for Sunday the 9th. But this is when we start to look colder, right around the 9th, which is only 7 days away, into the 10th, 11th, 12th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and look at this deep cold. That is severe. The blues are slightly below normal, which are way out in the ocean. The greens are well below normal, where we're talking about 10 to 15 degrees below normal. So these areas are already sufficient for very wintry weather and very far below what's normal. This ring of kind of purplish blue here, that is going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal. And the magentas here, where we're seeing a lot of the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, that is 25 to 35 degrees below normal there. That is severe cold. Very on par or even worse than what we saw in January. The important thing to note is that sometimes these models show, the 25 to 35 degrees below normal, and it'll back off and end up looking more like 25. We're talking 20 to 25 degrees below normal, maybe 15 to 25. But that is sufficient, like I mentioned. This is overbearing cold. This is so much that we might end up back in a dry pattern after the 17th if we saw this happen. So if you're hoping for snow, you might hope for more like 20, 15 degrees below normal as opposed to the 25, 35, 45 degrees below normal. That's just almost too much. The storms just move around that. It's too intense of an Arctic air mass. So definitely severely cold, and we're seeing the signs of warmth in the west, which is more reminiscent of a positive PNA. Definitely some encouraging signs here. GFS model, again, warm for days overall. We do see some cool downs in between, but mostly warm. Until about the 9th, 10th, this is when we start to see the cold moving in. Then the 11th, 12th, it just gets more intense. 13th, 14th, 15th. And here comes that deep shot of that Arctic air for the 16th, 17th. It's amazing that this is, how many days out is this? 15 days or something? And both models show a massive Arctic blast on the same exact date. I mean, that is crazy, but again, we're talking about the same things. This is so brutally cold that you would almost be hoping for it to be a little less intense. This is like lakes are freezing again for areas where they've thawed. This is right back to the very Arctic pattern and very unseasonably cold. This is so cold that it might even lead to February becoming below normal overall for a lot of areas if this verifies. Again, this is the first day where we're seeing models consistently agree on this. So we could see some back and forth, but from yesterday, we saw the beginning signs. It's so cool that I upload once a day and we get to kind of see how these things unfold together. Because yesterday I mentioned the chance and that there was some model guidance suggesting a colder pattern like this and some suggesting not. But now they're all agreeing. We're kind of putting our foot on the gas here with this. We'll have to see what tomorrow and the next day brings. As we move closer, confidence goes up and perhaps we see this agreement continue or even worsen. We'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, very interesting and very exciting. I can't wait to track this with you guys continually. And it looks like we could be tracking a lot of snow once again. So super cool stuff. Be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below and I'll see you guys in the next video.